Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this is a tale of a long time ago and a place far, far away. Well, it's far away for me unless you live in California, but a long time ago was last century. Back when I was out at Edwards Air Force Base, we had what was known as the Photo Resolution Range. This was basically a place where they took old test aircraft and they just put it out in the desert, and then they could use for reconnaissance aircraft that could fly over. They could take pictures and even satellites and stuff like that, and determine, how good the cameras were. Well, this is the skeletal remains of a B-58. This is, to me, one of the most beautiful aircraft ever, and it was left rotting out in the Edwards Desert, Mojave Desert, and it's just an extremely sad state of affairs. I mean, this is what they look like in their prime. An absolutely beautiful aircraft, shiny aluminum. It was fast. It was an amazing aircraft. And, Wright-Patterson had the same issue with a lot of airplanes setting out. They don't look so good after a while. They corrode. The beautiful skin gets dark, and it just looks kind of terrible. Fortunately for them, they've moved a lot of the outside aircraft in. Here's another shot of the B-58, just the skeletal remains. And of course, this is a B-57 that's put out there. A lot of historic aircraft ended up being just placed out on the resolution range out there. That NASA Digitac one, I know several of the pilots who flew that. That was the first work on a digital flight control aircraft. Of course, there's an F-101 Voodoo at the top, and it's just out there in the desert. And there's another picture of it. An absolutely beautiful aircraft, just stuck out there in the Joshua trees. Tails sticking out from behind hills. XB-47. Now, this is a very historic aircraft. It's a NASA aircraft. It's Balls 8. Now, they got a little smarter. It's still setting out in the desert, but it's not at the photo resolution range. This was an extremely historic aircraft, and I chased it many times. See, that's the unfortunate thing. I've been to the Puma Air Museum, and I've seen aircraft that the last time I saw them, they were on the flight line at Edwards, and I've flown these aircraft, and it was actually kind of shocking to see them in a museum and in, well, not as pristine condition as I was used to. And here is the side of Balls 8. In some of my other videos, I've got close-ups of this aircraft when it was actually operational. But it dropped the X-15, the lifting bodies, just all sorts of stuff. And you see just the inboard engines, that's the bracket that held the X-15 and the lifting bodies and that. And this was the NASA aircraft, one of the early model B-52s. Now, I'm not a B-52 expert at all. I get the gross weight wrong on these things by a pretty large factor, but this was told one of the early models that did not have flaps, so it landed at a fairly high speed. But they got smart. They put together this museum out at Edwards, took donations and that, and I'm sure you can still donate if you want. And they rescued a lot of these aircraft because they started to think that leaving these aircraft out in the desert just to rot, although, you put aircraft in the desert like at Mojave, and George was an operational base when I was there, and it's now storing them. And now around Tucson, you have Davis-Monthan, of course. You have a lot of places to store aircraft. And because of the dry desert conditions, they do fairly well. Slight digression here. My Turbo 310R came from Arizona area, and it was just beautiful. No corrosion whatsoever. But every piece of hosing, tubing, and that had all dry rotted and had all to be replaced. My first annual on that aircraft was $33,000, getting everything up to speed out of dry rot. Beautiful aircraft, though. Well worth it. Absolutely well worth it. And of course, here's a picture of a poor F100. And there is an F-111 Aardvark. Now here was something they did on the resolution range. That looks like a 106 down there. I'm not actually sure, but I think so. You can see next to the yellow arrow, that is a photo resolution panel where they have all sorts of markings, so you can basically take a picture of this, either reconnaissance aircraft or satellite, and then you can determine the resolution of your cameras and the accuracy and things like that. And there is, of course, what is remaining of what probably one time was a beautiful F-104. And there's another resolution panel. More aircraft. And then, of course, more aircraft they park out there. Now, like I said, finally they got smart. And I actually have a picture of an A9 that was in the NASA. I don't have it in here. It was in the NASA cordoned off area where they put aircraft. That was the A9 competed against the A10, and the A9 lost. That's why you know about the A10, but you don't know about the A9 because it was not good enough to beat the A10. So it ended up in the little NASA museum, and finally somebody got smart enough and said, we got a lot of history out there. We need to do something about it. And of course, here's an aerial picture. They have limited funds, so a lot of the aircraft still have to stay outside. But I'm sure as time goes on, they might better be able to put these aircraft inside a structure and to take better care of them. Anyway, that's a quick little tour of the photo resolution range, or what used to be the photo resolution range. I've seen pictures of models next to some of these aircraft, and they were taking photo shoots and stuff like that. So there's an interesting history of the photo resolution range. But it's nice to see that people have made the effort to preserve what are historic aircraft. At the time you don't think too much about it. You just push the aircraft out of the way. But some of these aircraft have a significant history, and this should be preserved for future generations. Anyway, thanks for watching.